Our basic quality of life in North Dakota depends on our ability to read, write, and comprehend. The ability to read is the foundation of learning. We know from experience that children not reading by the end of grade 3 will likely have trouble learning in all class subjects in upper grade levels. These young North Dakotans are at the center of recent legislation, which requires a greater emphasis on student literacy in the early grades. North Dakota Century Code, enacted by House Bill 1388, states that before the 22-23 school year, each teacher who teaches kindergarten through grade 3 at a school district or non-public school, and each principal of a public or non-public school with kindergarten through grade 3 shall attend teacher-approved professional development training that includes topics focused on phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, and uses systematic, direct instruction for students in kindergarten through grade 3 to ensure that students attain the necessary early reading skills.
Hey colleagues, when I heard that PE and music teachers were going to learn more about the science of reading and the different ways kids learn how to read, I need to be honest with you, threw me for a huge loop. I mean, do these people really understand that my lingo sounds more like throwing and catching and kicking? Oh, well, I realize we are all teachers of literacy, and after I asked a few questions, there really are a whole bunch of things that we're already doing, and we could do even more to help students become better readers. It's as simple as 3 things. Number 1, use big, bold, audacious words like sphere for a ball, or extend for stretch, or engage for play, or we could use perimeter for the outside line. Number 2, we can enhance teacher-to-student conversations by having students explain the activity rules rather than the teacher. By the way, we know the kids already want to do that anyhow. Number 3, asking high-quality questions like, how is a tennis racket and a hockey stick alike? How are they different? Why is this important?
In early grades, students learn to read. Then they read to learn. Reading well is foundational to all other success in life. Good readers are better equipped to think critically, analyze issues, and most importantly, solve future problems. They are more likely to earn a good living and have a better understanding of their freedoms and their responsibilities as citizens. One of the most important things our schools can do is foster strong reading skills in our North Dakota students.
The next module is an overview of 2 major models that underpin the science of reading: legislative requirements for educator training and the impact of illiteracy on our communities. A person who is unable to read may have low self-esteem or feel emotions such as shame, fear, and powerlessness. Students who struggle with literacy feel ostracized from academia, avoid situations where their illiteracy secret may be discovered, or find themselves unable to fully participate in society or government.
When we found out that Collins was reading at the 14th percentile for her grade level, I was alarmed and I knew it was time to reach out for help. We had warning signs, throwing books across the room, crying when she was told it was time to read, but it was really the drop in percentile that finally made us act upon those signs.
Before I got better at reading, I felt like I was never going to catch up with my classmates, and I would get nervous reading in front of other people. I felt like I was the slowest reader, and I thought, what if I don't get any smarter?
Illiteracy not only impacts the individual, but also has a significant effect on our local communities, even here in North Dakota. Health, safety, and financial stability are all impacted by illiteracy.
In the healthcare setting, literacy is crucial for families as they navigate not only their own healthcare, but for that of their family. They need it to read instructions. We often use that to communicate information about a health condition or what to expect.
Reading is the foundation for all future learning. So young students who are unable to read proficiently may find themselves lacking other critical skills in their later years. Children who do not read proficiently by 4th grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. According to World Literacy Foundation report in 2012, poor educational outcomes are linked to other negative consequences such as poverty, unemployment, illness, and crime. 75% of crimes in the United States are committed by high school dropouts.
Improved literacy rates have the power to strengthen our economy by boosting labor productivity, cutting millions of dollars in healthcare costs, and breaking the cycle of poverty for families in need. We envision a North Dakota in which all adults have the opportunity to read, write, and comprehend in order to navigate the world with dignity. When we talk to North Dakota employers across industry, they cite the need for their employees to have strong communication skills, the ability to solve problems, work together, and learn while on the job. And all of those skills have a foundation in literacy. So I applaud the teachers of North Dakota for investing their time and effort into helping North Dakota students prepare for success in the workplace far beyond graduation.
One model of reading that helps us understand how the brain works is called the simple view of reading. The simple view of reading is a multiplication equation. It illustrates that two components are necessary for reading comprehension to happen. Reading comprehension is the product of printed word recognition and language comprehension. If a student is strong in word recognition and weak in language comprehension, this student will not achieve reading comprehension. On the flip side, if a student is weak in word recognition and strong in language comprehension, this student will not comprehend written words either. We know that reading is not actually simple, but this model helps us understand the two necessary parts of being a good reader. The important thing to learn from the simple view of reading is that you may have students in your class who need accommodations or support in one area or the other. We can use Scarborough's reading rope to look more closely at each of the components of the simple view of reading. The bottom portion of the reading rope focuses on word recognition, while the top represents language comprehension. Dr. Hollis Scarborough states that the strands are developing over time. As they develop, the strands interact and influence each other. Being strong on the lower strands affords more opportunities to acquire more knowledge of the upper strands. Being strong on the upper strands has been shown to enable faster and more accurate reading. If any strand gets frayed, it can hold back the development of the other strands, and by extension, can eventually weaken the entire rope. Next, we will watch an animated video to look further into each strand.
Imagine you're going bungee jumping. This is your third time, so you feel really good about going up to the highest platform. You get to the top and step up to the jump line. You take one last look at your bungee cord. That's when you see the portions of your cord are frayed. How do you feel about jumping now that you know your rope isn't strong? We know from the simple view of reading that readers need to be skilled in both word recognition and language comprehension, and that poor skills in either one creates a breakdown in reading abilities. To provide effective instruction, it's helpful to understand with a little more detail exactly where the reader needs help. So let's dive deeper into this equation and explore Hollis Scarborough's reading rope. The lower strand of the reading rope focuses on word recognition and includes three critical skills: phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. These skills affect how we interact with printed text. Phonological awareness is our ability to work with speech sounds of language, like knowing that syllables make up words, handle, or recognizing the individual sounds within words, f. Decoding requires knowledge of the alphabetic principle, which is that sounds are represented by letters, and that not all spelling sound correspondences are direct one-to-one relationships. Like, you can spell the k sound several different ways. For example, the word cake has two spellings for this one sound. Sight recognition means that you see a familiar word and can instantly process it. Be aware that this doesn't mean only high-frequency words. To understand a reader struggling with the word recognition strand of the reading rope, try reading this out loud. That's pretty hard, right? We've artificially frayed your reading rope by removing the vowels, simulating a word recognition weakness. You might be able to get a few words here and there, but you can't decode accurately or efficiently. As these lower strand skills become stronger, they also become increasingly automatic. This frees up precious processing power for language comprehension, which takes us to the upper strand of the reading rope. The upper strand includes 5 key components: background knowledge, vocabulary, language structures, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. Background knowledge. Think of this as all the built-up facts, concepts, and beliefs that you bring to the table when comprehending or learning from a text or situation. This knowledge acts as a solid base for new learning. Vocabulary. This includes both the breadth and depth of one's knowledge of the meaning of words in a text. Does the student understand that revolting can mean disgusting as well as rising up in rebellion? Language structures. This is how our language is organized. It's the relationships between the words and sentences in a text. Semantics and syntax play a role in knowing that it's more common to structure a sentence like, "The barn owl hoots at night," than "Hoot at night, the barn owl does." Verbal reasoning. This is where the rubber hits the road with the ability to make inferences and understand metaphors, similes, and idioms. Literacy knowledge. This includes basic print concepts like we read from left to right and not right to left, as well as how text is organized for specific purposes. In the upper strands of the rope, readers become increasingly strategic and ultimately skillful over time. Let's look at the example paragraph again. Both upper and lower strand skills and abilities are necessary to read the words quickly and to read for meaning. Given that learning to read in alphabetically based orthographies entails visual recoding of language in the form of alphabetic characters representing speech sounds, and given that both phonological and visual coding are involved to some extent in language acquisition and language processing, we suggest these 2 abilities are most basic of the various cognitive abilities that underlie the ability to learn to read. Putting the vowels back in eliminates the simulated decoding deficit, making word recognition so much easier. But even knowing the words, you had to really lean on your language comprehension skills to follow the meaning, right? Skilled readers are strong in both language comprehension ability and word recognition skills. When both strands are woven tightly together, readers can jump into any text with confidence.
As educational speech-language pathologists, we work with students exhibiting communication difficulties and disorders. Under that umbrella are articulation, language, fluency, and voice. We know that literacy refers to the ability to read and write, and those are additional communication channels. So speech pathologists are in a position to strongly support, both directly and indirectly, students in their literacy development. The relationship between speech, language, and literacy is tightly interwoven. It's been depicted as a rope. The strands are all building blocks that later weave together as students become fluent readers. So having speech or language deficits put students at risk for reading and writing challenges later on.
In 1997, Congress asked the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development to work with the U.S. Department of Education in establishing a national reading panel that would evaluate existing research and evidence to find the best ways of teaching children to read. The 14-member panel considered roughly 100,000 reading studies published since 1966, and another 15,000 published before that time. From this pool, the panel selected several hundred studies for its review and analysis. In the year 2000, the National Reading Panel released a seminal report summarizing all of the scientific research to date on what it takes to learn to read. Their findings were summarized into 5 main areas or pillars of reading. We can overlay the 5 pillars on the reading rope. In this course, we will review the 5 areas of reading identified in the National Reading Panel report, as well as systematic direct instruction as required in House Bill 1388. Speaking and listening are natural. Reading is not. From the time we are in our mother's womb, our ears are attuning to the sounds of the language around us. We are born with the ability to hear the range of sounds found in every language in the world. Sometime between 6 and 12 months, babies' brains start pruning away the neurons that store the sounds, or phonemes, that we do not hear very often. What is left are all of the sounds that are used in our native language. All neurotypically developing children with a standard oral language environment will start by listening to the people around them and eventually learn to speak in order to communicate their needs and wants. On the other hand, learning to read and write does not develop in this same way. We can fill a room with books, but almost all children need an adult to teach them how to make sense of print in order to read. For most children, the neural pathways needed for reading are created by parents and educators. When educators use systematic and explicit instruction to teach reading and writing, we can help almost every child become a skilled reader. Let's take a moment to define some terms associated with literacy. Systematic direct instruction is helpful to all and harmful to none. Systematic direct instruction means the carefully planned sequence of instruction with organization of material that follows a developmentally appropriate order within a pre-established routine. Systematic direct instruction is explicit, follows a gradual release process, and allows opportunities for practice and feedback. The science of reading is a vast, interdisciplinary body of scientifically based research about reading and issues related to reading and writing. This research has been conducted over the last 5 decades across the world, and it is derived from thousands of studies conducted in multiple languages. The science of reading has culminated in a preponderance of evidence to inform how proficient reading and writing develop, why some have difficulty, and how we can most effectively assess and teach and therefore improve student outcomes through prevention of and intervention for reading difficulties. The science of reading is derived from researchers from multiple fields: cognitive psychology, communication sciences, developmental psychology, education, implementation science, linguistics, neuroscience, and school psychology.
We realized pretty early on that our students didn't have some of the foundational skills that they needed, and so when tasked with having to comprehend hefty text and just kind of get to proficiency, there was a wall. Something was hitting the stop button, and so we wanted to figure out what that was. And so when I was hired as the literacy coach, it was very much like, hey, we have this grant, we have this position, we're excited for it, so you have to learn first, because science of reading, I had no idea. And so my first year was a lot of learning about the science and how the brain learns how to read, and really unpacking all of the intricate parts of that, because it's so hefty. And I'm still learning. And what's nice is that I work with a fantastic staff who realized that something was missing in that instruction piece, and just the content, and they wanted to change it for their kids, and they wanted to do better for their kids. So it's really amazing working with the staff who is already so knowledgeable and talented as teachers, and they're recognizing that, hey, something's off, we got to fix it. And so that's what we've been doing. We've been hitting that hard for the last couple of years. We started with the reading rope, simple view of reading, those anchors that we've kind of latched onto, and how we can make those come alive for our kids. So it's been quite the journey, but it's been very rewarding.
Please check the course materials to complete the assignment for this module. Welcome to Module 2. In this module, we are going to ground ourselves back in our models of the simple view of reading and the reading rope. In this section, we will introduce phonemic awareness and phonics. These skills are part of the word recognition component in the simple view of reading. We can also break down this part of the equation by looking at the individual skills, or strands, found in the bottom part of Scarborough's reading rope. In 2000, the National Reading Panel report was published. In this report, the authors identified 5 key abilities that skilled readers need. These areas are often called the Big 5. How many sounds do you hear in the word fox? As a skilled reader, your mind is probably pulling up the number 3 because you know that there are 3 letters in the word fox. Phonemes are the sounds represented by letters in English. There are 44 phonemes in the English language, but only 26 letters. Some letters share the same phoneme, like the k sound, represented by the letters C and K. Some letters represent more than one phoneme. For example, S can represent the sound S or Z. One letter always shows up with a partner. And one letter represents 2 phonemes. These 44 sounds can be spelled with more than 200 letter combinations. Learning how to be a skilled reader in English takes many years. Let's come back to the word fox. Now, did you hear all 4 sounds? Let's segment that word together. F, a, k, s. The ability to hear these sounds is where beginning reading starts. This skill is called phonemic awareness. Sketch. Phonemic awareness is the ability to hear the individual sounds in language. When we speak, we combine those sounds into words. We do not pause for each sound. Explicitly teaching our learners to listen for, identify, and manipulate these sounds is critical for skilled reading. As learners approach more complex words, the ability to identify each sound becomes even more critical. Phonemic awareness helps us to read words when we blend the sounds together. A simple example of this is as follows.
All right, we're gonna change that middle sound. See that there? We're gonna change the out to
Trimming.
What's that word?
Trimming.
I'm trimming my hair, I'm trimming my hedges, or I'm trimming my nails.
There are simple activities that educators can do to help learners get their ears ready for reading. 3 phonemic awareness skills that you can use to support reading instruction are phoneme identification, phoneme segmenting, and phoneme blending. Phoneme identification is the ability to match or say the sound that is the same as the target. For example, if your name starts with you can line up.
Okay, we have a new one today, okay? All right, do you know what this is?
Bottle.
Bottle. Good. What's this?
Boat.
Boat. What's this? A bat. Good job. Ooh, look at this one. What's this?
A bee.
A bee. What is the sound at the beginning of each of these?
B.
B. Excellent job. Okay.
All right, now what vowel sound do you hear? Mush. Yep. Dash. Nice. Shop. Good.
We use phoneme segmenting to pull apart the sounds in spoken words. We can prepare students to be skilled writers by asking them for the first, last, or middle sounds in a word. For example, what is the first sound you hear in the word mat?
Okay, big. Let's tap it. Big. Big. Unmap it. Bring them down.
Wait, no, oops.
That's okay. Let's map it. Big. Nice job.
Phoneme blending is the skill that we use to put sounds together to make words. As teachers, we can say the sounds in the word mat slowly, at. Then ask our students to blend them together to make the word.
Bead.
Bead.
Yes. Bed.
Bed.
Shed.
Shed.
Hike.
hike. And back. Nice job.
Phonemic awareness tasks fall into a larger group of skills known as phonological awareness. Asking your students to clap out the number of words in a sentence, the number of syllables in a word, or practicing rhyming are all things that support students on the path to skilled reading.
Gum drop.
Gum drop. Gum drop.
So remember, we're going to start with our rhyming words, and rhyming words are the same at the end. So which word rhymes with nest? Chest or sun?
Chest.
Chest. Nest, chest.
You ready to rhyme? I'm going to give you 3 words. One of them doesn't belong, okay? Okay, listen, listen. Jam, ham, pig. Very good. Dig, slam, wig. Dig, slam, wig. You got it.
Phonics begins when we start to learn the letter-sound correspondences. Phonics becomes word study in the upper grades. Systematic, comprehensive, and explicit phonics instruction for all 44 sounds is necessary for skilled reading.
Oh, look at that one carefully. Now we're going to have to tell those two apart.
On this side.
Yeah, we're going to tell those two apart. Okay, here we go.
L, I, L, T, I, S, F, O, E, H, T, H, B.
There you go. There's that lowercase b.
A few students need a little bit of practice and they can start to find the patterns. However, most students need lots of practice in order to become fluent in recognizing or reading and using the spelling patterns in their own writing. While phonemic awareness tasks can be done by just using our ears, when we start practicing phonics, we need our eyes to make the one-to-one connection between letters and sounds. Phonics instruction can be done as a whole class or in small groups. Phonics and word study should be done throughout elementary and into secondary grades.
So the first thing I want you to do is drawing. When we have jur, what 2 letters say jur? D-R, good, right? It sounds like j, but we've got that D-R. The second thing I want you to check, make sure you have a D instead of a B. I see some people have burr on.
Sometimes students miss a skill or don't have enough practice to make the sound spelling connection. These students need to be administered a diagnostic assessment so that more practice can be provided to improve that skill.
Last year I started on working on my reading. Right away my teacher told me how smart I am and that I'm amazing at memorizing words. She was going to teach me a new way to read. She taught me word rules and how to figure out if a word has a short sound or a long sound. I understood it right away. It was slow at the beginning, but I felt so much better by the end.
Some students benefit from a multisensory approach, where an educator explains how the sound is produced in the mouth. Sounds that are produced in a similar way or in a similar part of the mouth are easily confused. These types of errors can show up in a student's spelling.
Where are your lips when you say b?
Are
your lips pulled back?
They're
Or are they?
touching.
They're touching, aren't they? So is b a consonant sound or a vowel sound?
Vowel, consonant.
What do you think? Turn to your partner and tell him, what do you think?
Educators who do not teach reading directly can support phonemic awareness and phonics by having fun with words that rhyme, or words that sound the same at the beginning, alliteration. They can ask students about the sounds they hear in words, or ask students to clap out the syllables in words. When students ask how to spell a word, educators can ask the students what sounds they hear in a word before helping with the correct spelling. All of these strategies help support skilled literacy.
But another thing that we forget to think about, easy things like in kindergarten. The first semester of most kindergarten classes are going over nursery rhymes and storytelling, and think about how many nursery rhymes that you are teaching in music education, whether you're doing it with orff instruments or just sing play or rhythm percussion, using all of those nursery rhymes at the same time that they're doing it is just going to support the curriculum, the cross-curricular relationship between the specialists and the classroom teachers.
Please check the course materials to complete the assignment for this module. Module 3 is all about vocabulary and background knowledge. We anchor our learning again in the reading rope. As we consider the topic of vocabulary, you can see it on the top part of the rope here. Vocabulary is the second leading predictor of reading success after the skill of decoding. However, closely tied to vocabulary is the concept of background knowledge.
Have you heard of the Boston Tea Party? No. Okay, think about a tea party. What do you think of when you think of a tea party? Turn and talk to your neighbor. What do you think of a tea party?
When we think about vocabulary, we have to go all the way back to the words kids hear before they even enter school. We call this oral language development, and it's pivotal to vocabulary acquisition and development. Hart and Risley conducted a research study that followed 3 children in their home environments. What they found was that as the number of words kids heard increased, so did the number of words in their vocabulary. When these 3 children enter kindergarten on the first day and the teacher reads a book, which child will be the most prepared to understand what they heard?
So what do you think, looking at our front cover, and if it's kind of far away for you, you can see it on the TV, what do you think is going to happen in this story?
Vocabulary use at age 3 is strongly related to 3rd grade reading comprehension scores.
Our first word is napping. Can your turn say napping? Napping. And napping means to take a short sleep. So your turn, say a short sleep.
Oral language is the seed that all students' word knowledge comes from. We've already talked a little bit about phonemic awareness and phonics, and those are the 2 skills that come next after the oral language pieces. The skills continue to progress in complexity. As content-specific educators, your role in this oral language development is vital. You are perfectly positioned to help students learn content-specific words that will build their word banks and their background knowledge, which will prepare them to become proficient readers long before they can read.
At the elementary level, we support oral language quite a bit. Whether we have them reiterate the rules of the game to us for further understanding. We have different activities where, like on a polyspot, for example, they have the word, they have the picture, so there's levels of understanding depending on their level of literacy. At the elementary school level, we definitely do a lot more oral than written.
The content knowledge that you share with students every day is building their background knowledge. In 1987, researchers Leslie and Recht set out to determine how background knowledge impacted reading ability. Students were asked to read a passage about baseball and then reenact the scene they'd read with a mini model. What the researchers found was that it wasn't kids who read the best who were able to reenact the scene. It was the kids who knew the most about baseball. A kid's prior knowledge about the topic carries their comprehension far better than their ability to decode the words alone. This is why your role as a content area educator is so important. The experiences that you provide for your students, the opportunity to use oral language and specific vocabulary, help to level the playing field and provide equity in other literacy activities. One of the things we know about a child's ability to read is that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Children who like to read will read more, and gain more background knowledge and vocabulary as they encounter more unique words. A child who isn't as skilled at reading can be reluctant or will avoid reading. If they don't like to read, they probably won't, so they won't gain the background knowledge or word knowledge like their peers who enjoy reading. You have the opportunity to teach kids unique words that align to your content area, and they fall within 3 different tiers. Tier 1 words are words that most students will already know. Tier 2 words are words that should be taught explicitly, but aren't necessarily content area specific. For example, if you are a school counselor, you might teach feeling words like frustrated. That's probably a Tier 2 word for kindergarten through grade 3 students. They might not know it, or they might not know how it is different from other feeling words. It also might be found in different types of situations or texts. Therefore, spending time to teach it explicitly is important. Compare that word to another word, like social emotional in counseling, which is probably a Tier 3 word because it is more specific to the conversation or reading passage during counselor time. If this is the passage we were using for our class, we would need to determine which words would be Tier 1 words. In this example, team and country are words that are probably known by almost your whole class. Your class might not know ceremony and stadium, so you would have to define these terms in depth. These words might show up in other contexts, and teaching these words will give them knowledge to transfer to other literacy activities. Last, we might choose Olympic Games and uniform as Tier 3 words because they are specific to the context of sports and could be quickly defined in order to read and understand the passages. Supporting background knowledge and vocabulary can be done within your content area. You can also collaborate with mainstream classroom educators to support background knowledge and vocabulary on current topics of study in the mainstream classroom.
So I'll chat with them once a week, like, hey, what's coming up? Oh, we're learning about clubhouses and different houses. So the book that I'll choose to read to them usually has like a tie-in to that. And the kids love that. They their minds are blown that it connects to what they're learning. Yeah, for me, it's being proactive. I started in the classroom before I transitioned to the library, so I know those teachers are so busy, so I don't wait for them to reach out to me. I try to email them and say, okay, what are you working on? How can I support this? Our first grade learners were doing their research project, and I was like, okay, well, what are you researching? How can I pull resources for you? So they were learning about Arctic animals. Each kid picked a Arctic animal, so I either pulled books that we had or I ordered in books from the state library or like the Fargo Public Library. I went and checked out books under my name and brought them here so they could read them and do their research. And then I also built like an online pathfinder for them. So I basically built like a Google website for the first graders, the level 1 learners, to go on and they can watch videos on their animals. Yeah, and some of them are finished now and they turned out so good.
The preamble was a wonderful song in the musical Schoolhouse Rock that the kids and I worked upon. And it was such a great lesson to do, not to mention the music is super fun. But the reason I think this musical text and this Schoolhouse Rock musical is so powerful is because it brings real life context alive in music and makes it relatable and understandable and allows kids to completely have a process of effective cognition when they're learning what's going on with the music. For example, in the preamble, we don't know what the preamble is. What does that ever mean? And then, what is the preamble? I say, well, no biggie, guys. It's just the first part of the Constitution. Well, what is the Constitution? And what is the Constitution? How does it relate to the United States? What is the Constitution? How does it relate to North Dakota? What is the Constitution? How does it relate to you in your own home? And so we were able to see pictures of the Constitution, see how it was signed, see how it related to history, and then see how it relates to today, on top of the fact of understanding new vocabulary words. Holy smokes, there's a lot of great vocabulary to discuss. Establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. Holy smokes, talk about that for 3rd grade. And we did. And so there's so much that we can just dive into just pulling everyday music text where kids can learn vocabulary and how it relates to cultural norms and themselves. And we were able to do that with the preamble.
You can support student literacy by planning purposeful activities that build background knowledge and vocabulary. The brain stores related words together, so connect new words to known words and topics. Plan activities where students have opportunities to use new words by speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Please check the course materials to complete the assignment for this module. The last module in this series covers fluency and reading comprehension. Fluency might be a more familiar concept than you think. When a student can automatically name a color or shape, they are fluent. When they can do an exercise without being shown, that's fluency. When a student recognizes notes or patterns in music, that can also be called fluency.
You do a plank. Are we doing low planks or high planks? Show me a low plank. Nice. Perfect. All right, stand up.
In reading, we define the ability to read fluently if a reader can read with accuracy, prosody, and appropriate rate for the text being read. Accuracy means correctly and quickly pronouncing words when reading aloud. Prosody means reading with expression that matches the kind of text that you are reading. The last piece of fluency is rate. Rate does not mean as fast as possible. Rate means a speed that is appropriate to the text being read. You might read medical articles more slowly than you would read a novel. It's really important to remember that faster isn't better. Just because someone can read aloud quickly doesn't mean they are comprehending what they are reading. Most likely, if someone is speed reading, their comprehension will suffer. The best way to help readers develop fluency is to provide multiple opportunities for students to read the same passage. There are a couple of easy steps in helping students practice fluency with a text passage. First, choose a short passage of 50 to 200 words. Next, think about how the students will practice reading. 3 instructional strategies for fluency practice in reading include choral, echo, and partner reading. Choral reading means having the whole class read the same text passage together at the same time.
So what year's on the bottom? 1770, 1780, 1790, 1800, 1810, 1820.
Echo reading means the teacher reads the whole passage with the students following. Then they read a section or line of the text, and the students echo back that line, reading aloud together.
We'd like to swim, but we can't. Bay Lake isn't open. What'll we do if we can't swim? Echo.
We'd like to swim, but we can't. Bay Lake isn't open. What will we do if we can't swim?
That contraction, that's so hard, isn't it?
In buddy reading, the teacher reads the passage aloud first, then pairs off students to take turns reading. Each student takes a turn reading a portion of the text and a turn being the listener.
So that when you go and read, you're going to read, remember the word, fluently. You're going to read like we talk. So we're just going to listen the first time and then we're going to go do.
Sit, Ray tells Dex. Dex sits. Good dog. Stay, Rex. Ray tells Dex. At first, Dex stays. He stays and waits when Ray tells him.
In all three of these strategies, at least half of the students in the class have their eyes on print, reading along and practicing their fluency, accuracy, prosody, and rate. We talked through some important options for how you can help students be successful readers in your classroom, but equally as important are the strategies to avoid. If students are reading unfamiliar text, we don't want to use round-robin reading, which is when students read in a predetermined order, usually by seating arrangement, or popcorn reading, when students take a turn reading in a random order. In both of these strategies, students spend too much time listening and not enough time getting practice reading the text. These two strategies do not support the philosophy that we want everyone doing everything all of the time in our classrooms. More importantly than that are the social emotional impacts of these strategies. Students who struggle to read or have anxiety fear the moment that their name will be called. The fear of reading a text aloud in front of others without having an opportunity to practice can be a big reason why unskilled readers avoid school. In order to develop fluency, students need multiple opportunities for perfect or almost perfect practice. Students should practice reading text that is familiar and has words that students already know how to read. If students are spending too much time decoding unknown words, then prosody and rate can suffer. Therefore, we want students to practice reading texts in which they have 95% accuracy or more. At this point, you might be thinking, but what about comprehension? Isn't that the goal? Yes, it is. If we think back to the reading rope, we see that a combination of all the skills we've already talked about work in tandem to achieve reading comprehension. However, there is still another instructional strategy that can help benefit your students' comprehension. Modeling is an important part of the skill development process. In your classroom, try to model your thinking while you're reading. This gives students a peek into the brain of a skilled reader. As content area educators, you're already experts in modeling. If you're a PE teacher, you model the skill or exercise or the movement that you want your students to do. Music teachers ask students to repeat a note or sing a line of song after a leader. And library media specialists, you are modeling your thinking aloud when you're reading books aloud in your library skills lessons. Art teachers model by talking about, planning, and demonstrating how to use a particular medium. As teachers, you're constantly modeling the skills from your content, and modeling your thinking while you read is an extension of that same process. In summary, fluency is important because it helps us get to reading comprehension. Fluency is not an end to itself, but a critical gateway to reading comprehension. A student who fluently reads frees up the cognitive desk space to process the meaning of text in a passage. And making meaning, or reading comprehension, allows students opportunities in school and in life. Literacy impacts all areas of a person's life, not only their academic success, but also their social and emotional well-being.
What we've noticed is a definite, more explicit focus on the letter sounds. These kids now are more fluent with that. We're seeing a lot better readers. Maybe spelling it comes a little bit later, but that's fine, you know, so they're sounding it all out.
So the knowledge of and the use of the science of reading has changed so much for us in our district. We're only 2 years in with our new learning. As an intervention staff, we're more aware of the ways that we can dig in deeper to figure out deficits with our kids, and we're more confident in knowing what types of instruction is needed to build stronger readers.
This course is just the start of a recommitment to increase the literacy rates in North Dakota. Skilled literacy is the key that unlocks equity to opportunity as adults. When we improve literacy, our basic quality of life in North Dakota improves.
I was excited to start school this year. I'm doing better in all my classes, and 2 weeks ago I got moved out of reading intervention to a reading group with all my friends. I feel so much better about myself and going to school now that I am a better reader.
Collins went into her 6th grade year confident, excited, and she had this feeling of, I've got this.
Thank you for changing our communities.
One reader.
One reader.
One reader.
One reader.
One reader at a time.